Chapter 2. Kai stopped in front of his garage and jumped off his bike. He opened the garage door by pushing it up half the way and took the bike inside. Kai bent down the kickstand with his foot and let the old door rattle down behind him. He took a deep breath, less because he was exhausted after his trip back from work, but more because the garage meant the in-between world for him, where he could be alone and gather his thoughts. Not that he didn't love Odette and their daughter Susie, which he both could hear running around above on the top floor of the fill-in building. He just needed time for himself. Time and quiet he couldn't get at work or upstairs. Woodwork helped him. It felt good to handle the organic material and to create something new. First thing he did after moving in was building himself a custom workbench for all the projects to come. Kai never had a workbench. His old places didn't allow that space-wise. His father had one in their basement, and Kai would have loved to keep it, but it wasn't feasible when the bank repossessed their house based on a reverse mortgage deal. That was before he met Odette, before the sacrifice started and before banks, private insurances, and the oil and gas cartel were wiped out after a class action lawsuit and found guilty of domestic terrorism. Nowadays, with the annual sacrifice, he would have made the payments and kept the family home. Until the sacrifice, for most middle-class families, reverse mortgages had become the sole reason to lose all their family homes, and only a few could wrestle their houses back from the banks until online apps replaced these institutions. The rich were financially savvy and handled their own money, while the majority just made ends meet and paid for food and shelter and cars during the oil age. Kai snapped on the light over the workbench. A yellow light, just bright enough without being annoying. The two 2x4s lying neatly next to each other, waiting to be connected. He wanted to build a wall where the garage door was. They didn't own an EV, an electric vehicle, and they never would. It made more sense converting the garage into a family room or a bedroom for Susie later. Their bikes they could bring inside through the door in the back. Maybe he would build another wall, splitting the garage in the middle, so he could keep his workbench for his carpentry projects. He lined up both ends of the lumber where he intended to join them and drilled small pilot holes for the wood screws to go in smoother. Then he changed the screwdriver bit and stuck a long wood screw in. Slowly he lowered the tip onto the pilot hole and pressed carefully the switch on the drill. With as little pressure as possible, he sank the screw into the wood. 3/4 in, the wood split with a painful cracking noise. Disappointed, he dropped the drill on the table. A groan left his lips. He turned his back to the workbench. The other half of the garage was filled with a heap of belongings from a bygone life. Odette and he had kept the bare minimum from their parents' lives and homes and their own childhood and the pre-marriage years, where he played a decent fullback at college and Odette practiced ballet weekly until her mid-20s, meanwhile buried halfway under Susie's toddler toys and dreams. Most of their parents' stuff was stored in badly labeled brown cardboard boxes. A few lamps and paintings, a chair and a drawer made by his father rested crooked on top. Also, Susie's plastic toys and her baseball gear, her hat, the 2 bats, her glove, the jersey of the Willow Point Wolverines, the shoes, and 3 albums with baseball cards. The pile almost reached the ceiling. Where all this would go once Kai had converted that part of the garage into another bedroom, he didn't know. most likely back into storage where the boxes had lived for years. Maybe the boxes would never be opened again, at least not from Odette or him. Maybe Susie would take a look once they were 6 feet under, opening 2 or 3 and deciding it wasn't worth her time. But for now, this pile of boxes anchored them in the past and reminded them with the power of a monument of the unconditional love they received as children by their parents. Kai cleared his throat and went over the corner where he kept the wood. Of course, he mumbled. These were the last 2x4s he had. He needed to replace the split one. Stomping from above 3 times, Odette's dinner call. They sat at the dinner table next to the window overlooking the small park on the other side of the back alley. The leaves in the trees moved gently, waving at them in brown, orange, and red. Odette and Kai had their usual chat after his work about how their days had been, and he had told her about the split 2x4 and that he would need to buy another one. Now Odette and he tasted the beef stew she made with onions, carrots, and lots of potatoes. Both added pepper to their bowls. If she would have made the dish just for him and her, she would have peppered it while cooking. But since Susie's palate was still too sensitive, they resorted to peppering their dinners when dished up. Susie sat on her chair, the light of the lamp above them reflected in her thick glasses, with her arms down, her hands clinging to the seat, as if she would fly a burning fighter plane and expected to be ejected any second. She answered her father's look with, "It's too hot." Odette got up, went over to the freezer, cracked ice out of a tray and came back, dropping 2 rocks into Susie's stew. She smiled and watched the ice melt between the potatoes and the carrots. "Tastes great," Kai said. "Thank you," said Odette. Halfway through their dinner, her device beeped and Odette grabbed it from the holder on the wall beside the sink. "Yes?" Kai put the spoon back in the bowl, watching her. Seeing the nervous twitch of her mouth, he knew that this was the call they were waiting for. This week was another check-up for Susie's eyes. Odette switched to the loudspeaker. The voice of their AI family doctor sounded calm and androgynous. "Finally around today. I hope I don't interrupt your supper at the same time. I hope that everybody is at home by now." A silence. Was that a question, Kai wondered, and said, Yes, and Susie is sitting right here with us." "Good, how are you doing, Susie?" "Good," she said with a mouthful. "How is your vision?" "Good." "Wonderful, then let's have a look. Odette, please turn on the D camera and hold the lens as steady as possible, maximal 1 inch away from Susie's face. Can you do that for me, please?" "Of course." She picked up her device, switched to camera mode, moved the pot with the stew aside, and rested her elbows on the table, holding up her D9. She whispered to Susie, "Sweetie, can you stop eating and concentrate on the doctor for a moment and what the doctor says?" She made, still with stew in her cheeks. She knew the process. Over the past year, they went through many of these doctor visits. Susie leaned forward close to the camera without stubbing her nose against the screen. "Wonderful, dear, you're doing great," the doctor said. "Let's start with your glasses on. Please look straight into the lens and open your eyes wide. Don't blink until I say so and don't move your pupils. Are you ready?" "I'm ready." 3, 2, 1, now. Their living room fell quiet. They could only hear their own breathing. "Don't blink. Hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. Good, thank you, Susie. You can blink now as much as you want, and then please take off your glasses and we do the same process without glasses." "Okay." She took off her glasses, immediately squinting and accidentally banging her glasses against the spoon that stuck in the stew before she laid them down on the table. That is fine, my dear. Have a moment to adjust your eyes. Let me know when you're ready. Odette nodded at her daughter, and Susie understood. Thank you. Kai noticed his hands clenching, and he opened them and rubbed over his upper thighs. Outside, a neighbor played with a dog. Having a dog would be nice. I'm ready, Susie said. Now let's repeat the process. Open your eyes wide, hold still, no blinking. 3, 2, 1, now. Kai's eyes rested on Susie. She seemed smaller, younger than she was, vulnerable. He would do anything to trade places with her. About a year ago, the doctor detected a problem with her eyes. A month later, she had to stop playing baseball. The glasses grew in their thickness every 3 months. Done, the doctor announced. Susie, you did a great job. I wish all 8-year-olds would be that focused. You can be proud of yourself. Thank you, her hand patting over the table, not finding her glasses right away. Now I would like to talk to your parents. Just a second, Odette said, and to her daughter, we'll be back at the table in a minute. Susie merely nodded. She had already the next spoonful of lukewarm stew in her mouth. Her mom got up and walked over to the couch behind her daughter. Kai's chair scrubbed over the linoleum floor as he moved away from the table and followed her. She put the D9 between them on a cushion, the volume of the loudspeaker set to barely audible so Susie couldn't hear the prognosis update. They stared at the glowing circle on the screen that pulsated when the AI doctor spoke. In the past, a generic face was used wearing a stethoscope around the neck, but it didn't add to the experience. So, more often, patients considered it cheesy. Can I talk? The AI asked. Yes, said Odette. My eye exam confirmed the observed tendency from previous visits. Susie's retinas in both eyes are rapidly deteriorating. Her vision became worse since my last visit. I will send you an update prescription for new glasses after this assessment. Kai asked while trying to keep his voice down. When will this stop? How bad will it become, her eyes? Kai, Odette, at this point, it seems your daughter's vision will further deteriorate and eventually Susie will lose her eyesight. No, he said. Yes, I would not joke about this. That would be very cruel and you can't be sure. We are trained in all. Why? How? Kai asked. Today I can only measure the symptoms and assess based on the data I gathered and compared. A final diagnosis and confirmation of my prognosis is... Shut it off, said Kai. Kai, Odette said through her hands cupped in front of her mouth. Shut it off. We need a real doctor. Susie needs a real doctor. An actual doctor, face to face. Not a device quack in her face. The AI doctor said, I'm sorry you feel that way, Kai. I can reassure you the precision of my... I had a real doctor when I was her age. Kai grabbed her device and swiped the circle off the screen. The D9 bounced back onto the cushion. The clacking of the spoon hitting the porcelain amplified the silence in the room. A carrot or a potato had to be stuck in the bowl, and Susie tried hard to empty her dish. Odette picked invisible fluff off of her jeans. Her D9 hummed once. She said, That's probably the prescription for her new glasses. Can you take care of that? He asked. Sure. Kai stood up and let his gaze flee to the park. Into the silence, Susie asked, Will I go blind? Her mother rushed over to her and hugged her from behind. Don't say that. Don't worry. Don't you worry. Do you want some more stew? No. Sure, that's good for you. No, thank you. Kai marched to his device. I call a doctor. Do you want to help Mom clean up the table? Sure. Kai, his wife said. What? He replied while pressing the D9 against his forehead. She kept her voice calm and carried the pot with the stew to the kitchen counter. By the time you're done verifying, it will be past 5 p.m. Nobody will answer your call at any doctor's office. He hacked the 13-digit code into the system. We have the great new LethNet. Wasn't it supposed to all go faster and better with LethNet? Susie carried her bowl to the sink. Odette, the other two. I don't know if that meant the verification as well. Pointing on the screen, he piped up. What kind of fucking animal is that anyway? She decided to be quiet. He knew they agreed on not swearing in front of Susie. Undersea creatures should be forbidden for verification. And why is there no button anymore to demand a new animal? We had that button, that new try button, a new animal button. We had that all figured out in the past, remember? True. She collected the dirty cutlery with her daughter. He yelled at the D. That is the head, isn't it? What else should it be? You think I cannot differ between a head and an ass? Odette smiled at her daughter and said softly, It is past 5 o'clock now. Have your D hour. Yippee! Susie sprinted over to the couch, let herself get airborne and landed beside the device and grabbed it. Kai let his device sink. We had it all figured out. Her hand landed on his shoulder. Tomorrow, the first thing in the morning, we call the doctor, an eye specialist. We have to. They looked at her daughter. She was already collecting baby dragons in Spitfire Woman. I need a 2x4, he said. I go now and get one. Do that. Kai completed the verification while walking down the back alley, the road crunching under his boots. Although the fresh air calmed him down, it didn't chase his worries away. He loved Susie. He was there when she was born, and he remembered her saying Pa for the first time, and when she took her first steps, and her excitement about it. Early on, she showed her talent to throw a ball and advanced eye-hand coordination. Her interest in baseball came to no surprise. He loved taking her to baseball training after school, and she could join the team at the age of 6, 2 years before the usual official consideration. But there was no kid or teacher at the school that didn't see her natural talent and her joy playing the game. Her interest in baseball grew beyond playing on the diamond to the game's history, its great players, and collecting the old analog baseball cards. That's why it hit so hard when her eye problem started a year ago. He stopped and took a deep breath. Over him, the branches of an elm tree, bright yellow against the blue sky, a leaf sailing to the ground, landing a few feet away. A family on their bicycles passed him by. Kai cleared his throat, and with his D9 he located the closest EV, half a block away. He activated the red thunderbolt on the screen and reserved it for him. It wasn't the newest model, but he didn't want to walk another block where 3 more EVs were parked, one released this year. First, he checked the designated transport function of the 2048er EV to make sure the 8 feet long 2x4s would fit. The passenger seat folded all the way down, and a separate opening in the hatchback for overlong materials featured a solid neon-colored bag that could be pulled out and over the end of the lumbar so it won't slip out during the ride home. He remembered the last pickup trucks, guzzling around when he was a child, and they deemed to be necessary for that kind of job. Now the world turned without them. That reminded him of the OAM, the Oil Age Museum on the north side. They hadn't visited the complex yet, but there he could show Susie all the vehicles that used to populate the streets and made life without unbearable. They could watch the half-an-hour documentary, Bribed and Blinded, his co-worker told him about, how even the urban city planners were paid under the table by the oil and car industry to create inhumane neighborhoods and streets that catered to as many accidents as possible and to generate more revenue for the industry in return, not regarding the lives destroyed and lost, and how it was all possible that nobody wanted to see that back then when it happened. The door fell shut and the electric motor began humming. Kai said, 2x4 guys on Mayor McGrath Boulevard. The GPS registered his destination and answered with an artificial female voice. Your time of travel is 33 minutes. Relax and enjoy your trip. There was no way Kai could enjoy this trip. While the steering wheel turned in front of him and the EV backed out of the parking lot, he chose his current playlist and opened Scat, a retro card game to distract him from his thoughts. His D9 auto-connected to the sound system of the EV, and out of the loudspeakers came the song, Let's Set Sail and Sail Over the Ocean to the tax havens of the rich and take them over.